Yeah, so I'm going to be asking Professor Kristen questions now. Professor Kristen is the president of the ASI. I'm going to ask him questions about the objectives, the graduate study series we have, and graduate study in Canada, among many other questions. Many other questions I'll be asking him. So the first one, Professor Kristen, please, can you let us talk about African Scholar Initiative, this initiative itself? What are the objectives behind this organization?
Thank you very much, Dio, for the introduction. And I would like to say welcome to all the participants from across the globe. And it's a pleasure to be having this inaugural webinar because this is something that has been on the pipeline for a long time now. So African Scholars Initiative is actually more of a kind of formalization of efforts all of us, most of us in Canada here has been undertaken individually for a long time now. And what's that effort? Of course, that effort is, providing information to friends, relatives, siblings, and people in our part of the world to kind of enable them to pursue further education in Canada. Most of us who are here, whether as students or as professors, we've been doing this, providing these informations to individuals. But what actually kickstarts the idea of African Scholars Initiative is that we kind of get to realize that this is not something that can be done at individual level. I'm trained as a lawyer. I get requests for information from maybe friends and even total strangers, like in LinkedIn, asking me questions about graduate study in engineering or graduate study in other areas of other field that I know nothing about. So I discovered there's limit to my capacity to be able to provide them such information. If it is information about law, graduate studies in law, of course, that's my area, so I'm able to provide that information. So we kind of thought about, having a sort of a formal forum whereby we can have this group of individuals in this different area here. We work together as a team to be able to provide this information. And we realize that working together as a team, we're able to reach out more group than, working solo as an individual. So that was what led to the idea behind the formation of African Scholars Initiative. Now, to be more specific, the objectives of African Scholars Initiative, among others, is to attract bright future academics and researchers of African descent to pursue further education in Canada, to pursue graduate education in Canada. And by graduate education here, I'm talking about master's and PhD. It is also our objective to mentor emerging scholars of African descent who are pursuing further education or graduate education in Canada here. And another objective of ASI is to pair these bright scholars with established academics in Canada so that these ones are established academics are able to provide them with mentorship. So in this case, it's a sort of a networking opportunity. So the objective of ASI is to attract bright scholars of African descent to pursue further education in Canada, and then mentor them through that process for them to be able to succeed as scholars and academics in Canada. And how do we intend to do this? Well, there are two ways we intend to do this. First is through the webinar or free information series, which we're just starting with our webinar presentation today. So by means of these information sessions, we're able to provide information to prospective scholars generally and academics who are seeking to pursue further education in Canada. So there are various ways we intend to do this. There are various ways we intend to do this. So we've structured it in such a way that it will kind of go sequentially. So we're going to start with the admission information. So graduate admission in Canada has just opened. So this is the period whereby prospective applicants are now, kind of running around to get their application ready. So from now till the close of the admission session, we are going to be having a series of webinars that will be providing information, graduate admission information, to this prospective students or graduate students. And we've tailored it in such a way that we will have a forum that will focus on graduate information generally. We'll also have some other forums that are unique to maybe master's students, and we have another forum unique to PhD students. So this is how we intend to go about. So we're going to be talking a lot, about a lot of things, searching for institutions or schools in Canada, preparing personal statements, preparing research proposals, whether for graduate studies and doctoral studies. At the close of the admission session, of course, the next step will be, announcing the admission when the schools begin to admit students. And when the admission announcement is being made, that is when successful applicants will now start applying for their study permit. And this is the most complex and difficult aspect of your journey to Canada, being able to get the study permit. So once the admission process is through and the results have been, admission offers are being made, we're going to start another session that will focus on the immigration aspect of your study in Canada, which is the study permit aspect. So we already have lawyers who are already lined up to be providing this general information. Now, I wish to emphasize here that we do not intend to deal with anybody as an individual. Our aim is to provide general information and not, to kind of deal with anybody as individual in the sense of, okay, you submit your research proposal, we'll review it to you. No, this is purely information session. If you have a question during the webinar, we can attend to that question, but not dealing, the essence of the webinar session is not to deal with individuals as individual, but rather to provide general information to all attendees. And like you said, rightly said, Dio, the session is open to all who wants to attend. It's free. Now, another aspect of ASI fellowship, which is, ASI the initiative, which is unique to individuals now, this is the part where we deal with individuals as individuals, is the ASI fellowship program. Now, the ASI fellowship program is the unique program we have actually designed, solely tailored for the purpose of meeting our objective of attracting bright future academics and scholars of African descent to Canada. Through the ASI fellowship program, we appoint fellows or award fellowship to individuals. Now, this has no monetary benefits. So the fellowship, there's no monetary benefit attached to the fellowship. But what we simply do by means of the fellowship is to identify those individuals that have that unique potential we are looking for, which is the potential to be able to, become successful academics and scholars in Canada. And of course, what we're going to be looking at here is, your experience, your academic performance. So we select this bright individual based on this unique experience and academic performance. These fellows have the opportunity of being paired with individuals in Canada, either mainly professors of African descent who are already established in Canada. So we pair them with these individuals for the purpose of providing mentorship. And of course, this idea of fellowship will include, the individual mentors they are paired with, being able to provide them with mentorship, reviewing their application, discussing their careers, providing them the career feedback. So this starts from the time they start the academic admission process down to the time they settle down in Canada here. So they continue to mentor them, the idea, of course, to enable them to go through their academic process, masters, PhDs, and then also provide them with the information that they will need in order to transition to becoming academics, whether university professors or researchers. So that is for the ASI scholarship, fellowship program. Now the ASI fellowship program has not kickstarted because we're just kind of trying to get things ready. So for the next couple of months or so, we are basically going to be working on, the webinar session, which is aimed at providing general information to participants to enable them, succeed, or to provide information that will help them succeed in their search for graduate education in Canada. So these are basically some of the objectives of ASI and how we intend to pursue it.
Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you very much for your answer. I know I've got like 5 questions here, or 3 more questions, but I think you've pretty much covered most of the questions I have here. Okay, I know you've answered the question regarding the format of, ASI will be taken to, to do this webinar. The format, and yeah, I think you've already answered that question. Or would you want to go over it again, or to just ensure that we get the format? So the question now will be, what format will ASI Canada Graduate Studies webinar be taking? I think you answered that question pretty much.
Okay, well, okay. Let me. Thanks for that question. Let me maybe probably use this opportunity to elaborate further on it. So this is the first webinar we're having. This is October. So the plan or the format is we're going to be having general and specific webinars. So general webinar will basically provide general information about graduate admission, whether master's or PhD. Then we're also going to have webinars that are specifically designed for master's program, and another one that is specifically designed for PhD program. And part of this webinar, we intend to invite current students who are already in Canada, who have recently gone through this process, the admission process, for them to share their experience. What do they think was the key to their success in being able to get admitted? So here we're going to be looking at their maybe personal statement, their research proposals. So we kind of get that information or that feedback from them. And that will also apply to PhD students. So we'll also be having a PhD session or forum where we'll invite current PhD students who are currently in Canada pursuing PhD studies to discuss their experience leading up to the program and their current experience. Because one thing, why we believe these sessions is important, Dayo, is the fact that information is very vital to success, especially in graduate studies. Most of us who came here, who never had that opportunity of having information sessions like this, were basically like, someone who is left in a desert without a compass or map or GPS, now trying to get out of the desert, or maybe you're in the middle of a forest without any guidance as to how to get out. So what you basically do, you just end up, moving around and around the forest until suddenly you find yourself out of it. You find out in such a situation, you have spent so much time trying to navigate that unclear terrain. But when you have individuals who have gone through that process, who knows the way, all you just need is someone to kind of lead you, okay, rather than, beating about the bush, searching for a way. This is the guide, just follow this. You find out it's much easier for you to be able to get out of that situation. So the information is very important. And that's why we believe this session will be very relevant and useful to individuals seeking further education in Canada. So between now and December, we're basically going to be looking at graduate admission. Our webinars is going to focus, or are going to focus on graduate admission and scholarship informations. Then from January to April, our webinar will focus on, we'll be discussing basically immigration and study permit informations. So this is where we're going to be inviting immigration lawyers of African descent who practice in Canada to provide information to successful applicants, that is those who have succeeded in the admission process, or those who even want to join just for the purpose of, getting that information for future use. So we'll be having immigration lawyers in Canada to come in. We'll be inviting them to discuss that. And during this period of course, so that is between January and April. Then between August and September, I mean, at this point in time, those who are successful in the immigration process in terms of the study permit application will probably want to, know or gather information about settling in Canada, starting their studies and how they go about that. So we'll also have our information session between August and September. Will focus on this aspect. So we have ASI has designed a year-long program aimed at disseminating useful information to prospective applicants. So that year-long program starts October and runs down through September. And at the end of September, we now have to also start that process all over again for new prospective applicants. So for those who are joining us, we have a lot in store in terms of information to provide for you. So to stay in touch, we'll invite you probably to join ASI on social media like Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, where you'll be kept up to date as to what webinar we're having and when, as well as details about registrations.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you very much for that response. We're very grateful for that. And I just have to emphasize now that if you have questions, kindly type your questions in the chat session so that we can look at it and discuss the questions. Thank you very much. And I need to, reemphasize the fact that, getting the admission in Canada is one thing. Then securing your study permit to be able to come study in Canada is another thing. So you don't want to, really undermine this. So you want to attend the webinar so that you can get necessary information for you. Yeah. So my next question.
That's true. Sorry, if I may also add, I mean, I think the immigration process, like I said, that is the most difficult process, especially for, graduates of African descent, because getting a study permit now, well, not now, has always been a very big problem for, for students, especially from certain regions in the world, Africa being prominently one of them. I remember some time ago when we had to do an access to information request from the Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada to determine the number of, the ratio of successful study permit applications. And you won't be surprised to know that over 80% of study permit application filed within a specific African country, we requested that information. About more than 80% of the student study permit applications are refused from this particular country. And to put it in a better picture, what we're saying is that out of every 10 study permit application that was filed from this particular country, less than 2 are successful. So that means more than 8 are refused. And that is no good news. So in terms of study permit, applying for study permit, it's very good to have as much useful information, as is available out there, because your chance of success, it's very, very minimal. So you just want to put your best foot forward. So that's why this information section will probably be very useful too.
Yes, thank you very much. But let's focus on the admission first.
Okay.
Before we go to study permit. Yeah. So my question to you now is, for an international student or graduate interested in graduate education in Canada, where would you recommend them to start in their search for graduate education in Canada?
That's a very useful question too, Dio. Well, the starting point, I would say, will be, first of all, you have to identify what program you want to pursue first. And identifying what program you want to pursue, there are 2 key factors I want you to seriously consider in making that decision. And as you're going to see, this is still related to the immigration aspect, which is the study permit aspect of it. So when you're looking at a program you want to pursue in terms of graduate study, think about a program that is related to one, your undergraduate studies or your area or current area of employment. So if your undergraduate degree is in sociology, if you're looking at graduate studies, okay, so let's say your undergraduate study is in sociology. You graduated with a sociology and now you are working, let's say, as an insurance agent. So if you're looking at graduate studies, you look at graduate studies that is related to one, sociology, or another one that is related to your area of work. And this is important, I'll emphasize further. This is important because when you're applying for study permit, most of the reasons often given by immigration officers for refusing study permit application is that the future study is not related to the applicant's previous education or their area of work. So that's why it's problematic. If you are seeking for graduate study that is not related to your area of work or your undergraduate studies, then you really have a bigger hurdle. You have to explain to the visa officer why you are choosing to pursue a graduate study that is not related to your area of work or related to your undergraduate study. And considering the fact that the visa process is already kind of, your odds of success is already very low, that's not a problem. I mean, that's not an area you want to get into. So my advice is look at for a program that is related to your area of work or to your undergraduate study, And if the period of time you've graduated has been long, then look for a program that is related to your area of work. So if you graduated from, let's say, sociology 10 years ago, and for the past 10 years, you've been working as an insurance agent, if you are seeking a graduate study in sociology, that may be problematic because you have been away from that field for a long time. If you are looking at a graduate study that is related to your area of work, that makes sense because maybe probably you need that graduate education to further your career, as opposed to, undergraduate study, that area that you left 10 years ago. So the question would be, why is he going back to pursue a graduate study in sociology when he or she is no longer working in that area or working in a different area? So these are important points. I mean, we're probably going to be talking more about this when we go into details about, graduate study application. But the starting point is look for a program that is related to your area of study, undergraduate study, if you are a recent graduate, or your area of work, if you're not a recent graduate, or if you're a recent graduate who is working on your area or the area you just graduated from. So that's the starting point. Then, having decided what program or graduate program you want to pursue, the next step will be, of course, Google should be your best friend, or whatever search engine out there you use. Search for universities in Canada that offer the program that you have decided you want to pursue. And there are a lot of universities here. So, I mean, these are things that you have to spend time looking into. So look for as much school that offer that program as possible. Then when you have gathered information about these schools, then I will encourage you to visit their website, especially the departmental website, not just the school website, but focus on the departmental website, because the department normally have their own website. That is the department that offers the program that you want to pursue your education or your further education. Gather information about these departments, about members of the faculty. What areas of work are they, what is their area of work? What research are they doing or currently doing? So when you have gathered this information, the next thing, of course, our advice is to narrow down to probably 3 of these schools. So when you've narrowed down to 3 of these schools that you would eventually want to apply, then of course the next process would be to kickstart the application process. And I will always advise you to apply to more than one school. I know this is a very difficult process in terms of, considering the cost, and of course the bigger hurdle apart from cost, of course, is being able to send a transcript to, obtaining transcript, which has often been a very big problem for many of the schools in Africa. So try to apply to more than one schools. Let's say 2, 3 to be on the safe side. If at the end of the day you get 1 admission out of the 3, that is good. If you get 3, if you're admitted into the 3 institution, that even makes it much better. Then at least now you have a choice to make as to which of the institution to go. Maybe probably if you have the ones offering, let's say, funding, as opposed to the one not offering any funding. So you have that choice, but you only have that choice if you have more than 1 institution you have applied to and you have gotten more than 1 admission. So what I'm simply saying is that it's better to have more than 1 admission than not having any. So don't put your egg in 1 basket by just, applying to 1 school. And if you are refused, then you have to wait for like another 1-year process all over again to start making to start reapplying. So like I said, the problem people will often have here is with regards to transcript. And at ASI, we have we are aware of this problem, and we're looking for ways to be able to address this problem, especially in relation to transcripts. I know problem most graduate students from Nigeria do often have when it comes to obtaining transcripts from their educational institution. So part of our ASI fellowship program, that is for individuals who are successful in the ASI fellowship program. So what we intend to do to address this challenge is to for them to request their transcript from their schools in Nigeria or whatever African country they are. Send the transcript or request the school to send the transcript not to the institution they are applying in Canada, but to send it to ASI. So when we receive the transcript in ASI, we will notarize the original copy of the transcript and then send copies to the various schools they're applying in Canada. So if you're applying to 3 schools in Canada, rather than applying for 3 transcripts to 3 schools in Canada, you apply for 1 transcript, send it to ASI, ASI receives it, notarizes it in Canada, and then now transmits it to the 3 schools. So that will go a very long way, in addressing this issue. But like I said, because of limited resources, these are opportunities that we're only going to that will only be made available to fellows, because right now, ASI is basically being run by volunteers at their own cost. So if we throw this open to the whole world, then we're probably going to be overflooded with responsibility that we may not be able to discharge. So this is part of the benefit of being an ASI fellow, in addition to the mentorship opportunities we provide to the fellows.
Thank you very much. Is that all, or do you still have more points?
Yeah, I think that's I think that's all I have to say with regards to the graduate study. Like I said, this is just more like a kind of summary of information relating to the graduate study, graduate study in Canada. This is more like a kind of general information. We're still going to be having subsequent webinars that would discuss on specific issues.
Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you very much for that. I need to remind you again that if you have questions, kindly drop your questions in the chat section so that we can respond to your questions. Thank you very much. And thank you very much again, Prof, for mentioning that the body will be helping students to get their transcripts. I know it's a very big issue for people, for applicants. It's very difficult for them to have their transcripts sent from some countries to Canada for the admissions and all that. So thank you very much for mentioning that point. Now to the next question. I know this question is actually very, very important, because I know I've talked to some of the people who are very close to me regarding this question. and I've tried to give them my own opinion regarding it. Yeah, so I just want to make it public now so you can address the question at once. So for graduate studies, specifically master's degree,
yeah,
there are two major streams. We have the thesis and the research paper-based streams. Now, international students are often confused as to which of these trends they should pursue or choose in their graduate applications. Please, can you provide some insight into this?
That's a very good question. Yeah, very important too. Thesis versus research paper. Now, that's a decision each individual will have to make. But let me provide you basically with general information to take into consideration in making a decision. One, thesis-based master's program. Well, this will not apply to PhD because PhD, there's no research paper for PhD. PhD is purely thesis-based. So this will apply basically to for master's program. So master's program can be undertaken in two ways, either research paper or thesis. For thesis, that means your research, your graduate study is basically going to require you writing a major research thesis, which depending on the institution will normally be probably somewhere 100 pages or more. This will require extensive research skill. For research paper-based, or which is also described as course-based, it means you're going to take a lot of courses, more courses than someone doing the research paper, doing the thesis, You take more courses and then write one major research paper. And in this case, major research paper for research paper-based is usually like 50 pages. I'm speaking from law. I don't know to what extent that applies to other discipline, but one thing at least that apply across board, whatever discipline, is that if you're doing research-based, you're taking courses, more courses, and writing one paper, major research paper. If you're doing thesis, you're taking few courses and then writing one major research. The length of the research papers, whether for course-based or research papers-based, will vary depending on the discipline or the faculty. Now, with regards to research paper-based, I will advise you go for research paper-based if you are not very competent in terms of research skill. And one problem with the research, for thesis-based, you go for thesis if you are very sure about your research. If you love research and you believe you have that skill, then go for thesis-based. The good thing about thesis-based is that opting for thesis-based, you have more chances of getting funding for thesis-based than for research paper-based. In fact, most schools, once you're admitted for master's program on thesis stream, you're often offered some sort of funding with it. And also, for thesis-based, if you find a supervisor in an institution who is working on a research project that is related to your thesis, there's highly likelihood that they will agree to supervise you and even provide you from funding if they have research grant for that particular fund. Then, personally, for my master's, I went for a research paper. I went through the research paper course-based stream. And the reason why I did that was because maybe I had some doubts in terms of my research capacity. And this is doubts most of us have. I did my undergraduate study in Nigeria. And of course, most of us who have done undergraduate studies in Nigeria, you know to what extent we are exposed to research in our undergraduate studies, very minimal. So most of us actually leave school with very minimal skill in terms of research capability. And I was very conscious of that. That was why I was kind of very skeptical about going for thesis. So I went for the research, of course, with the consequences of going for a research paper. I didn't have a funding, so I have to go through the difficult process of funding it myself. But even then, I took the research stream or paper stream as a kind of bridge to help me to kind of bridge the advanced research competence you find in this part of the world with the deficiency from the part of the world where I was coming from. So I used that research paper as an opportunity to build my research skill. So at the end of the day, I opted for the research paper based. I submitted a research paper, but my research paper I submitted for my master's program was, let me say, higher than the average research paper you will expect from a course-based student, and maybe to some extent lower than what you expect from a thesis student. Lower in the sense that it was not 100 pages or more. It was in the range of the 50 pages that is required. But I wasn't just writing it for just writing a research paper to submit. I wrote that paper for the purpose of building my research skill in an anticipation of my doctoral studies. So at the end of the day, the result was that the quality of my research paper was higher than what an average you would have expected from an average student in a research paper-based master's program. And I can even tell you that that paper was eventually accepted by the Canadian Journal of Law and Technology. It was published by the Canadian Journal of Law and Technology, which further facilitated my PhD admission and, of course, funding for the PhD program. So these are some of the factors you need to take into consideration when you have to choose between the research paper and the thesis base. If you are very skillful in conducting research, go for the thesis. You have the advantage of funding. But if you have a problem with your competence, then I'll suggest you start from the research paper and then use that to build your skill.
Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you for that. I need to, emphasize again that the point you've mentioned regarding scholarship, I know it's very important to many people applying from different countries. I know it's very important, and I can tell you that, it is better if you're seeking scholarship to go for the thesis base. It comes almost automatically. If you do that, that's with my experience. But if you don't, like the professor said, if you don't have the capacity for that, you can just do your course-based masters and move on with your life. But really, I need to emphasize that if you want money, if you want the funding, it is always better. That's the truth. I will tell you to go for the thesis based. Yeah, I got it. That was what I did, and I got the funding. And I know many people who did that who got necessary funding for their program. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
so we're going to go.
Another thing I also like to add there, just before we proceed, is the fact that thesis based, it's also very competitive. So your chances of getting admitted is very slow. It's very low compared to research paper based. So if in the course of admission, if a particular faculty is admitting, let's say, is admitting 10 master students for that faculty, probably out of that 10, they may probably offer you probably have like 3 thesis based, because thesis based often comes with funding. So if they don't have the funding, they will not admit more students than they can fund. So thesis based is very competitive as compared to research paper based. So if you're going for a research paper, there's more chance that you'll be admitted, but there's less chance, you have less chance of getting funding. If you are going for thesis based, you have more chance of getting funding, but your chance of getting admitted is also very slow because of limited funding by these institutions. So that's just the point I want to add.
Thank you. So this question is from Babatunde. Are you ready? I hope I pronounced it very well. So he is saying he's asking for those who already have their own original transcript with them, can they also follow the same method in sending it to ASI instead of the institution?
The transcript assistance program is not in place now. Like I said, it's part of ASI fellowship program. So that opportunity is only open to ASI fellows, those recipients of ASI fellowship award. We've not started that fellowship award yet. So when we start those fellowship award, we'll open up that opportunity to the fellows. And I also want to add that because of the sensitive nature of transcripts, we will only be able to notarize transcript we receive directly from the academic institution, because notarizing means you're vouching that is original copy of the transcript. And the only way we can vouch for that is when it's coming directly from the institution as opposed to coming from the individual. However, for those who already have copies of their own transcripts, what I'll advise you to do is to take it to a lawyer or notary public in the country where you are located. Have them notarize the copy. Make a scanned copy and send to the institutions you're applying to, which is same thing as having ASI notarized. Send it to the institution. Inform the institutions if you're applying to more than one institution and this is a copy or certified true copy of the original, that when you are eventually admitted, if you are successful in your admission, then you will be providing them with the original copy.
Yeah.
So if you have one original copy, that can enable you to apply to 5 institutions. If one of them or 5 of them admit you and you choose that you want to go attend one or University X, then you cannot apply to your Nigerian institution to send original copy to them, because most cases those institutions will insist on having the original copy. However, they can process your admission based on a certified copy they have on file. So they will offer you admission, conditional admission. That is, the admission will be conditional on you providing the original copy of your transcript.
Yeah.
So for the person asking the question, I think that is what you need to do. You don't need to send it to us. You can send them, make a certified true copy, send certified true copy to all the institutions you're applying to.
Prof, thank you again for that answer. I think I need to mention that, most of the schools in Canada are already aware of the situation in Nigeria.
Yeah.
With transcript, that is very difficult for applicants to get a transcript, from their institutions. Not just getting the transcript, about the timing too. Getting the transcript to the schools when the admission process is still going on. I think my own experience, what I did during my time was to send, in fact, my transcript was not even notarized. I sent my, unofficial transcript to the school to let them know about my situation, that, look, this is what is happening in my country. I think NASU was on strike and I could not get my transcript. So I sent them my unofficial transcript to hold for me and to see that I have schooled in Nigeria and I have this degree and all that. And when I finally got the admission, before I started my program, NASU already resumed their strike and I was able to get my original transcript. So what I was able to do with that was that I was able to get the admission while the Nigerian university was delaying my transcript. So yeah, so thank you again for that. So I will go to the question of INSINCAN SCN. It said, thank you for setting up this platform. How do you become an ASI fellow?
Okay, good question. So ASI fellow, it's still a fellowship we have in the work now. In fact, that's going to be one of our biggest projects because the ASI fellow is specifically tailored towards the objective of ASI itself. And like I said at the beginning, the objective of ASI is to attract bright future scholars of African descent wherever they are located. So the idea, like we said, is to identify these individuals, then pair them up with academics and scholars in Canada of African descent, kind of pair them up for the purpose of mentorship as they go through the admission process, their studies, and eventual transitioning from graduates to academics in Canada. We're still working on that. We're compiling more like a database of African scholars in Canada. And we're looking at, we're talking about university professors who are of African descent. So we're compiling a database, their areas of specialization for this purpose. So we just, ASI is still relatively new. This is just our first webinar. We got incorporated as a Canadian registered not-for-profit organization in July. So there's still a lot of things to do. And like I said earlier, most of us working on this project now are basically working as volunteers, kind of juggling or multitasking between our responsibilities, our various responsibilities and this. So we're still in the work with regards to ASI Fellowship. Once it is launched, is going to be announced using our various forums, which is LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. We're also trying to set up our website, which is afrischolars.org. The website is still in the works, so we have a long way to go, but we believe, I think we're starting. So once that initiative is fully set up, we'll announce it, and then we'll open the opportunity for individuals to apply. And like I said, it's going to be a very competitive process, because we are basically looking at, very bright scholars and people who have established that fact at their undergraduate education. So we're basically going to be looking at, in terms of your performance as an undergraduate. So here we'll be talking about, students with maybe probably most likely first class graduation or very high second class upper students. And we'll probably look at, maybe that this would be in case of maybe new graduates. Then we'll also take into consideration, your career in the case of those who are not recent graduates, your career since graduation, to what extent or to what area is your career moving. So these are some of the factors we are going to take into consideration in awarding our ASI fellowship when the fellowship program eventually starts. So when it starts, we're probably going to be advertising that. I'll be providing for more information about the fellowship. So stay tuned, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or connect on LinkedIn to keep up to date with the information.
Thank you very much, Professor. The next question is this. So please, at what point in time do you get to know of schools that have funding for students? This is from Bisola Okole.
Sorry, can you take the question again? At what point in time do you get to know?
Do you get to know of schools that have funding for students?
That have fundings for students. Okay. Now, if you're talking about funding from students, there are two things you're going to be looking at. A school may have funding. It's one thing to have funding for students. It's another thing to have funding for international students. So I believe here she's probably talking about schools that have funding for international students.
Okay.
Now, there is, most schools do have unique programs. Okay, let's talk about the general funding first. For most schools, once your CGPA is above a particular percentage, maybe more than above 70% based on their ranking, they automatically award you what is known as admission scholarship. Admission scholarship either covers your full tuition or part of your tuition. So that one is automatic once your CGPA or your GPA is above a particular level. So that's one. They normally provide this information on the website. Then another way to get funding, especially if you're working on a particular area of research, is to identify professors in the institution that are working on that area. Most of them do have funding, big fundings, and from the funding, they hire research assistants. In fact, most government research funding bodies in Canada require that professors applying for funding have to undertake to train graduate students. So most professors that have fundings, research fundings, have an obligation to hire graduate students. That's part of their commitment when they were granted the fund. So you have, in this case, if you're able to identify a professor working in your area of research who has a research grant in that area, they'll be very willing to offer you assistance in terms of hiring you as a research assistant, and they'll be willing also to undertake to supervise your research. So these are two ways to go about research. If you have a very high CGPA, look for schools that offer admission scholarship. If the schools don't offer admission scholarship, then reach out to individual professors researching on your area to see if they have research grants, and if they'll be willing to hire you as a research assistant. But one thing you have to know is that as international students, your ability to secure funding from from outside your institution is limited, because bodies here, like research bodies here that offer grants, kind of tend to focus on Canadian citizens and permanent residents. they may have some limited fundings for international students, which will become very competitive. So these are some areas you may want to look at. But like I said, in subsequent webinar, we'll have special webinar dedicated to scholarships and funding. Then we'll be able to discuss this in more details.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. The next question, we have just 4 minutes left.
Okay.
So this question is pretty much on immigration. I mean, on study permit application. Yeah. During the application for study permit, candidates are usually required to show proof of financial support of at least 10,000 Canadian dollars. Apart from the payment of tuition, is it possible to use only the letter of acceptance showing an offer of scholarship if the scholarship will cover first year tuition and living expenses?
Very good question. If you go strictly by the requirements of Immigration and Refugee Protection Act and regulation, if you have a lot of acceptance showing that there is sufficient funding or scholarship offered to you, which covers your education in Canada, that should suffice. But in reality, that is not often the case. So let's go with reality as opposed to theory. Even if you have funding that covers your entire education, that helps in terms of showing financial capability. But it is very important, absolutely important, that you include other financial statements. So okay, whether from your own financial statement or a close relative. And we'll talk more about this during the immigration study permits webinar. But yes, your letter of acceptance is not sufficient. You're going to need other additional evidence to support that in practice. Yes.
Thank you very much. We have 2 minutes left. We have this last question. This person is asking, I've worked with my undergraduate degree for 4 years. That's Oluwadamilola. I've worked with my undergraduate degree for 4 years now. Can I still apply for a course related to my undergraduate discipline?
So the question is, I didn't understand the question. The person has worked with their undergraduate degree.
Undergraduate, yes.
So in the same field.
I haven't worked. The person said I have not worked with my undergraduate degree for 4 years now. Can I still apply for a course related to my undergraduate discipline? It's just talking about this course of study. Yeah.
Yes, you can still apply, but that's a very tough one because if you can see, I mean, nothing stops you from applying, but where it to become more challenging is in the study permit application process. So you have to convince, you need to convince the visa officer. If you are working in an area different from the area of your undergraduate education, why are you going for further education in your area of undergraduate education, being away from that area for 4 years? So is it because you want to, change career? So these are explanations you have to apply, but the answer is yes, you can. But it's just that you're going to need more explanation when you're applying for a study permit as to why you're going back to that area.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think this brings us to the end of this webinar today. It's already 12 here in Canada. I mean, it's already, I think we've already spent 1 hour. I know we have different, time zones and all that. I'm sorry about that, but it's already 12 here in Canada, and we've got to go now. We will have, webinars that will address so many things like the professor said, scholarship, funding and all that, and immigration and every other thing. So we will let you know through our channels, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, about our event and what we're doing. Thank you very much for joining us. We're very grateful.
So I just wanted to add quickly for our social media ID, we use AfriScholars1. I just put that up on the chat box. So AfriScholars1 is what we use for our Instagram and Twitter accounts. So you can join us on Instagram and Twitter. For LinkedIn, sorry, I don't have that information for, but in LinkedIn, you can search African Scholars Initiative. So you can also follow us on LinkedIn. We'll be posting information as they arise, both information from news media in Canada related to international studies, as well as further programs or sessions. So we look forward to seeing you guys again soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. Feel free to send us messages, DM us on Twitter. We will be happy to respond to you. And if we cannot respond to you immediately, we'll be happy to, answer your questions during our webinars. So thank you very much. Send us messages and tell your friends, about us so that we can do this together. We are ready to help you through this process and we're committed to it. Thank you very much, Professor, for coming here today. We're very grateful for your time. And
thank you very much.
We're very grateful. Yeah, thank you. Do have a very nice day in Nigeria and every other part you're calling from. Thank you. Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.